has gone through, I don't know, like the last month, potentially the last 2 years, and just like felt like the world is a colossal dumpster fire. Like just when you're like, it's not gonna get any worse, it happens, right? And so I was thinking about this when I was pumping gas. I'm super lame. I'm pumping gas in my car. I have a Scion XB. I have to drive in the city, so I drive a tiny car. It is what it is. And so it's a little car, and it cost me like $50 to fill up my gas tank, and it usually costs me like $25 to fill up my gas tank. It was $50. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a bummer. And then, because I work with a lot of marginalized and oppressed communities, I thought, this is a bummer for me, but it's probably like way, way worse for people who don't have the extra $25 to fill up their gas tank. Because like I know people who that $25 is going to be the difference between them getting medication or not getting medication, getting like food to eat, not getting food to eat, right? And so for me, I'm looking at like inflation, what's happening with inflation, and kind of walking through the store going, that's a little pricey, but put it in my cart, But I know other people who inflation, like, they don't have food. They can't go places and do things. They're not sure how they're going to make it to work because like $50 to fill up your tank, well, that's like a quarter of their paycheck. And I don't know, maybe some of you guys live in a house right now where that's a real thing for you. COVID has been awful, and like we kind of, it's like, that was like an understatement of the year, right? COVID's been awful. And I feel like maybe we're at the tail end of things, hopefully. I work in a hospital, and so I can tell you from a hospital perspective, things are definitely better. Our beds are not filled with people who have COVID and are dying. But it doesn't mean that people aren't getting sick, and it doesn't mean that the political aftermath of COVID is anywhere near close to gone. Like we are, as a country, far more angry at each other than we, I think, ever have been. There's a ton of tension. There's a war. I don't hear there's like a war in Ukraine because Russia decided that for some good reason that they should be able to just, I don't know, take over people's land. And I'll say this, it amazes me that Americans get mad at that because you realize that's why we have a country. Just saying, we did the same thing. Now, I'm not taking away from what they did, but just let that sit with you and maybe have a certain level of sensitivity to other people who live in this country that lived in this country a long time ago, right? But you've got Putin that's decided he's going to go in and have a war in Ukraine. It's affect the global supply for food and for gas and for other forms of energy. And it's put a lot of stress and tension and pressure on the whole global economy and especially people in that region. And then like we've had school shootings. And it's crazy because like I'm at the point now where I hear about school shootings and I'm like, oh, there's another one. And it struck me this week that that's really messed up. It's really messed up that we live in a country that there's been so many school shootings that you're like, yeah, there's another one. Except this time it was like a bunch of elementary age kids. And if that's not enough, I think probably bigger than everything that I just listed was the tension that we all feel because of that. Because as a country, we've lost the ability to talk to people about things and be civil and be kind and be gracious and be considerate of what other people might think or feel, right? And I've been alive for 40 years, and I can tell you that I don't remember a time where things have been as tense in our country as they are right now. And I actually went and I talked to some people who have been alive for like 60 years and 70 years who would have been alive through like the Vietnam War era protests and civil rights and a lot of different stuff. And I kind of went to them and then their parents had been alive through like the Great Depression. And I said, do you remember a time, do you remember your parents talking about a time where things have been more tense than they are right now here in this moment? And every one of them without fail said, no. I don't remember a time that our country's been like this. My parents never talked about a time that our country's been like this. Like we are in a place as a country that we've never been before. And people are feeling it to the point of like the issues that we're having with people with behavioral health are far worse than they ever used to be. Because it's not just like you have to manage your own mental health and behavioral stuff you've got going on, right? You've got to use your coping skills and your energy to deal with that baseline, but you're also trying to navigate a world that's full of pressure and tension. And people are losing it. I'm just wondering, is there anybody here today, like outside of stuff that I brought up, well, like you personally, like this is what's happening in my life right now that's making the world feel like a dumpster fire? Anybody have anything going on? No? Oh, great, awesome. You guys are good, fantastic. Glad to hear that. Except I know you're not. I know you're not. The anniversary of my son's death is next month. My world, dumpster fire. This is the worst month of my marriage every year because my wife and I are hurting so much that we are not only trying to deal with our grief, but we're trying to figure out how do we not take it out on each other. My wife and I got like a very mini, it wasn't even a fight. My wife was like, you've been really cranky lately or whatever. I was like, no, I don't think I have. I think you may be a little bit more sensitive than you think. And then it was like very like, on a scale from 1 to 10, it was a 0.05 of a fight, right? And I walked up to her, I gave her a hug. I said, hey, I just want to let you know I love you. And she started bawling. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she goes, I was afraid that this was going to be the start of like 4 weeks of fighting. That's a dumpster fire, man. And what I thought about was how are we with all that stuff that's happening right now, how are we supposed to have joy? Because as Christians, we've been told to what? Be joyful. It's like, yay! Like you just, does anybody feel after that just like 5-minute little, introduction, feel like, I feel great. Let's go home now. I feel fantastic. I am amped. As Winston Dickerson would say, I feel Liddy in the city. It's just really, really good. It's my new favorite phrase. For a long time, I say to people, like, what is that? I said, Liddy in the city. You heard me. No, right? I think it'd be the Apostle Paul. If anybody had a good reason not to have joy, it would be Paul. Listen to what Paul says in 2 Corinthians. He says, I've worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. Already starting out sounds bad, right? 5 times I received from the Jews 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times, because you could beat somebody 40 times, but if you did more than that, it wasn't okay. So they beat you 39 times just to make sure if they lost count, they didn't go past 40. That's the legalism of the Jews. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Not once, 3 times. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger from the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, in danger from false believers. I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. I don't want to tell Paul how to write things. I feel like you should have led with that last verse first because like I've been hungry. It's like I was shipwrecked 3 times. I've also been hungry. Just by the way, I've been hungry, right? Like if anybody's been through it, right? Paul has been through it. Can anybody say, geez, my life has been worse than Paul's? Probably not, right? And listen to what Paul says to the people, the church in Thessalonica. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and everything give thanks, for this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus. So you read all this stuff that happened to Paul, and Paul is saying, in everything, give thanks. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing. I don't know that, I can tell you right now, that's not my attitude. I have to work to that attitude. Paul's like, this is what we're doing. Doesn't matter what happened. This is where I'm at. And so I'm thinking, all right, how do we have joy like Paul had joy? And there's 2 things that stuck out to me. The first one was Paul had joy through his purpose. So listen to Paul. He's in jail. He's locked up. And this is what he says to the church of Philippi. He says, now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that my circumstances have turned out for the greater progress of the gospel. This is him being in jail. So that my imprisonment is the cause of Christ has become well known throughout the Praetorian Guard and everyone else. So that's the guard for the Roman army. It's a big deal. That's the palace guard. They're important people. And most of the brothers and sisters, trusting in the Lord because of my imprisonment, have far more courage to speak the word of God without fear. So Paul, this is great. Paul's in jail. He's locked up in jail. And everybody in jail is innocent. You'll never go to jail and someone's like, yep, I did it. I murdered 3 people. Nobody says that. You're always innocent. And you have to say you're innocent because if you ever want to have an appeal and you actually told somebody that you weren't innocent, the lawyer will go find the cellmate that you told that you weren't innocent to, and they will have them testify that you weren't innocent, and that person will get a deal and they'll get out of prison quicker. That's how that works. So everybody in prison is Innocent. And there are innocent people in prison, but everybody in prison is innocent. And that's not Paul's. Everybody around Paul's going, oh yeah, man, I didn't do it. And Paul's like, no, I did it for sure. I definitely preached the gospel. So whatever the guard was for the day, he'd be like, Jim, I just want to let you know, I'm here because I preached the gospel. And just in case you don't know what the gospel is that Jesus, the Son of God, came to the world, lived a perfect life, died on the cross for your sins, my sins, rose from the grave, beating sin and the power of death. And because of that, you and me, we can be forgiven. We can be made right with God. The Holy Spirit can live within us. We can live for Jesus, and we can go to heaven. And Jim's like, Paul, I have heard that for the past 24 days. I know what the gospel is. I know, Jim, but I really want to make sure that you understand why I'm here. So what I'm going to do, just so you know, is for the next 8 hours that we're together, I'm going to make sure that you hear my favorite 8 hours of preaching that they put me in jail for. Like, that's Paul. Paul was like, I didn't do it. And Paul's like, no, I for sure did it. It was me. Let me tell you exactly what I did in great detail. That's Paul. Paul's in jail, right? And he's going, cool, I have a captive audience. Literally and figuratively. Have a captive audience. I'm going to tell everybody around me about Jesus because that's my purpose. And can you imagine Paul being like, I cannot wait to wake up this morning for whoever is going to be my guard today because I'm going to tell them about Jesus. I was telling people about Jesus when I was out of jail. I might as well be doing it here. Like Paul found joy in his purpose. He found joy in his purpose. Now, guys, I want you to hear this real quick. God is not calling you to ignore the dumpster fire in your life. The stuff that is going on, we have not been called as Christians to be like optimistic people who completely ignore all the stuff that's wrong with the world. That is the opposite of what we've been called to do. God wants us to be painfully aware of what's going on in the world. And when it can, he wants us to do something about it. He wants us to be at work, both with our words and our actions. And so the first thing I want to throw out to you is God wants us to pray. I want you to listen to 1 Timothy 2, 1-4. First of all, then I urge that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made in behalf of all people. Not some people, all people. For kings and who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. If you want something to be done about school shootings, I would suggest you start praying for the leadership of our country. And for the people that are shooting people. And for the people that live around the people that eventually shoot people. This is good and acceptable in the sight of God and our Savior, who wants all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. So Paul says, pray. If there's a dumpster fire, pray about it. And pray for everybody who's involved in it. Philippians 4:6 says, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and pleading with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So Jesus doesn't say, don't worry, be happy. Jesus said, don't worry, pray about it. Pray about it. Whatever's going on, pray about it. And pray for everything and everybody involved in the situation. Pray about it. And I've told you all this before. If not, I've told the middle schoolers. The dumbest thing people say is, man, all I can do for you is pray. I'm like, no, that's the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is pray for somebody, because the God who created the world and is in charge of everything listens to you. He's in heaven, in control of everything. And he's like, what's that, Matt? You want me to intercede on behalf of those people? All right. I'm going to take that under advisement. If I determine but yeah. What's that, Luke? You want me to, for those people too? Oh, Alex, you want me? Oh, well, I'm getting a lot of prayer up here for this. Like, God doesn't call us to pray for no reason. He calls us to pray because he will respond to our prayers. Now, I want to say this really quick. Praying is good. And it is the most powerful tool that we have. But I want you to be really quick. If you pray like, dear God, I want you to please fix this problem. I want you to know that God is probably going to come back to you and be like, hey, I'm going to use you to fix the problem. All right? So it's not going to be like, well, I'm going to pray about it. And they're like, all right, I'm out. I prayed about it. I'm good. That's like, no, because when you pray about it, God's going to go, well, obviously you care about this. You have a heart for the people that are hurting here. And so what I would like you to do is this. And sometimes it's going to be subtle, and sometimes there's going to be no question this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so I want to think about some action things that we ought to be doing after we pray. And the first thing is I want to encourage you to be a part of putting out the fire. Matthew 5:9 says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Romans 12:14 said, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. When the world is on fire, we're supposed to be the ones that are putting it out, and we're supposed to put it out with love and care and kindness and encouragement. We're supposed to go into situations that are broken and go, I don't know what I can do to make it better, but I'm going to love on the people in this situation and find a way to make it better. More than anything else, we're supposed to go, oh, wow, that's a fire. Your life is a dumpster fire. I know somebody who can put out this fire. Would you be interested in knowing about them? Because who puts out the fire? It's church. There's only one right answer, right?
The Bible.
Jesus. The Bible also puts out the fire, right? There you go. Well, Jesus, the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, so we'll tie those together, right? So, like, Jesus is always the answer. I remember one time, there was this, Luke, I'm going to tell a preacher joke, okay? So there's this little kid. We were joking about how preacher jokes are lame. There's this little kid, and he was in preschool, a little preschool Sunday school class, and the teacher was talking, and she said, now I've got this friend that's going to come out and talk to the class, and this friend, it lives in a tree, and it eats nuts, and it has a gray, bushy tail. And little Johnny was like, and she was like, do you guys know who my friend is? And little Johnny raises up and he goes, and she goes, Johnny, what do you think it is? Well, I really think it's a squirrel, but we're in church, so it must be Jesus, right? Like whenever there's a question, the answer's it's always Jesus, right? And so there's a fire, it's a mess, life is crazy, and we're like, hey, I know a guy who can put out this fire. His name is Jesus. Can I introduce you to him? Can I show you his love and his care, his kindness and compassion? Can I find a way to make things better? Like we are supposed to be a blessing. And not just to the people who love us and are kind and are good to us. We're supposed to work to put out the fire to the people who are the reason that the fire is burning. The people who are causing the problem. We're also called to help those in need, right? James 1:27, religion that our God, our Father, accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress and to keep oneself polluted from being polluted by the world. Romans 12:13, share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. That means you let people come stay at your house or eat your food, that kind of thing. I want to be really careful about this. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Some of you might be thinking, well, that only means that I have to be good or kind or nice to Christians. That's not the case. We're supposed to share with people who do not love Jesus as well. In the Old Testament, they had this thing called gleaning, where when you harvested your field, you weren't allowed to make a second pass to pick up anything that had fallen, and you weren't allowed to harvest the corners of your field so that people who were poor or people who were foreigners could come to your field and get grain to eat, right? And so God wants us to share and take care of our brothers and sisters in Christ. God also wants us to take care of people who do not love Jesus. All right? Some people use that verse, goes, the church is supposed to take care of the church. And I'm like, no, that's not the only thing that God wants us to take care of. Philippians 2:3-4, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking out for your own interest, but each of you for the interest of others. You want to make the world a better place? Start finding people who are in need and meet their material, spiritual, physical, emotional, relational needs in whatever way that you can. So, like, you might be saying, well, Matt, like, we're broke. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, and like, some of you all work, right? And you have jobs. And your families are going through a really hard time right now. Might take some of that paycheck and buy some groceries. You might look at your parents and go, man, they are really stressed out financially right now. So I'm going to get some groceries so I can take the edge off of them just a little bit. And then for those of us who are not hurting financially right now, but we're aware of people who are hurting financially, y'all know where this is going, don't you, right? Like if you see somebody who's in physical need, like you should meet it. So if your friends are struggling, help them out. If people that you go to school with who are not your friends are struggling, help them out. If there are people that you go to school with that are mean to you, definitely help those people out. Those are the people I would encourage you to help out first. Help people out. Find a way to meet the needs of other people. If you want to put the fire out in the world, start with the people around you. And I want you to think about something like, for instance, the war in Ukraine. If the people that were in control of that situation thought, I'm really not concerned about what I want or what I need. I'm really concerned about what's best for everybody around me. Do you think there would be a war in Ukraine? Probably not. Probably not. If you think about all the political tensions around COVID and everything that happened around COVID, if people in this country thought, I don't know if this is really going to help or it's not going to help, but I do know some of these things are going to make people feel better. And so, man, if this is what it takes to make people feel safe, I'm going to do it. Because this is a hard enough time as it is. And if there's something I can do to make it easier on somebody else, I'm going to do it. Because my personal liberty is not more important than my ability to spread the gospel. It's an amazing thing in this country. Somehow, we have put the Constitution above Christianity. That is a problem. The Constitution is not in the Bible, correct? Scripture's in the Bible. And so, while certainly the Constitution is the law of our land, Scripture is the law of our hearts and is what we should be following. We can love other people. John 13:34-35, a new command I give to you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. I've really struggled with school shootings because you've got one part of the country that says, man, this is a mental health issue. We need to address mental health. Other people say this is an access to guns issue. We need to get guns out of our schools. We need to have locking doors. We need to have armed guards. I mean, there is 1,001 arguments that people are making about what we need to do to make schools safer. I want to read you 3 quotes from school shooters. 3 quotes. I feel rejected. Rejected. Not so much alone, but rejected. I feel this way because the day-to-day treatment I get usually, it's positive, but the negative is like a cut, and it doesn't go away really fast. So when I get hurt, I get hurt. I felt like I wasn't wanted by anyone, especially my mom. And this is one of the school shooters said in a statement, I think it was a written statement, and it was directed at the parents. Your children who have ridiculed me, who have chosen not to accept me, who have treated me like I'm not worth their time are dead. Are you noticing a theme in this? How many of those people do you think felt loved, accepted? None of them. They're angry. Guns, access to guns, mental health, violent video games, all of these things probably play a huge role in school shootings. And I want you to be very clear when you hear me say this. People are responsible for their individual behavior. I am not responsible for what Luke does, and Luke is not responsible for what I do. You hear me saying that, right? But Luke can have an influence on me. And I can have an influence on Luke. And I can't help but wonder if as Christians, we decided to go in our schools and find the people who are hurting the most and struggling the most and scared the most and outcast the most and said, these are the people that we're going to love. So the people who get picked on, the people who get mistreated, the people who are downtrodden, the people that nobody cares about and don't matter. As Christians, if we just said those people, they're our number one target. They are the people that we are most concerned about day in and day out. I guarantee you, if Christians started to do that, there would be less school shootings. Unpopular opinion, I'm sure. Luke, if you get hate mail, I'm sorry. But it's true. I'm willing to bet that a lot of those kids that went and shot other kids wouldn't have done it if they felt loved. Don't contribute to the fire. Live a godly life. Ephesians 4:17-32 says this, and we're going to go through this fast. So I tell you this as insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding. They're separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality as to indulge in every kind of impurity, and they are full of greed. They're not very nice people, right? That, however, is not the way of life that you guys have learned. When you heard about Christ and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught with regard to the former way of life, put off your old self, which is being which has been corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on a new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. So those people, they're not right. You also were not right, but you've been taught to be new, and so you're not going to live that way anymore. Therefore, each of you must put off a falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anyone who has been stealing must not steal, steal no longer, but they must work, do something useful with their own hands, and they must have something to share with those in need. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up in accordance to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Don't grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. So when I think about how we live, if you lived like this on a day-to-day basis, I guarantee you in the relationships you have with other people, you're not going to make things worse. You're not going to make things worse. You're not going to contribute to the fire. If you I just go through life as kind, decent, compassionate, caring people who have our mouths in check and our hearts in check and our actions and our attitudes in check, we will not make the fire worse. We won't. We will not pour gasoline on the fire. 2 Timothy 2, 24 through 26. And the Lord's servants must also not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach and not resentful. Opponents must be gently instructed in the hope that God will grant them repentance, leading them to a knowledge of the truth. And they will come to their senses and escape from the trap of the devil, who has taken them captive to do his will. Control your tongue and your keyboard. If you don't want to make the fire worse, stop saying stupid stuff on social media. And stupid stuff isn't just stuff that's wrong, it's stuff that's not helpful in any way, shape, or form. Trust me, nobody felt strongly about an issue, went to social media, saw you say something that was really jerk-faced, was like, they're right, I should change. That never happened, I promise you. And you know how I can do it never happened? Because no one's ever in this room had their opinions changed by somebody on Facebook with an opposing view who was nasty, right? Exactly. And yet, here we are. I want to go down to the abortion clinic in downtown Louisville, and I want to carry a sign that says this: Jesus is pro-life. He's also pro-you. He loves you whether you have an abortion or not. Also, I'm sorry those people are jerks. Please, for the love of God, don't go to an abortion clinic with holding a sign of a dead baby and call people murderers. Like, it's not helping. It's really not helping. It's not making anything any better. All it's doing is hurting people who are already hurt. I'm pretty sure, like 100% sure, that Jesus would not be hanging out at an abortion center with a sign of a dead baby yelling at people. He would probably be saying, I love you. I don't want you to do this, but I still love you. Also, those people really are jerks. Like Jesus, I think, would also have said that, because there are times in the New Testament where he said something very similar, minus the word jerks, right? He didn't say it, but he might have thought it. I don't know. All right. Don't be a jerk. In public, on Facebook, don't make the fight worse by saying things that are just going to make the fight worse, right? Colossians 4:6, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. It's not saying that we're not going to give an answer. We're just not going to be a what? Jerk about it. Don't make the fire worse by the things that you say and the things that you type. All right, so that is putting out the fire maintenance. All right, here's the second thing I want you to think about: joy. So we're going to find joy by purpose, by doing what God has called us to do. And those things we just talked about, God has called us to do them. Here's the second thing I want to throw out to you: choose joy through gratitude. All right, so gratitude isn't everything in life is great, and I'm so thankful for all the good things that are going on, and everything is good and nothing is bad. That is called being delusional. That is not gratitude, okay? Gratitude is, this stuff over here is bad. The stuff that I can do something about, I'm going to do something about it. The stuff that I can't do anything about, I'm going to trust that God is going to do something about it. We've already talked about that, right? And then the other piece of gratitude is, this is all the other stuff that's fantastic. See all the stuff that's good. Paul in Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to look down so I don't address anybody. I know that there are people in this room right now who have experienced just some stuff over this past couple weeks. This applies to you. And I love you and I'm sorry. Life is not fair and life really hurts, but the stuff that is good in life outweighs the stuff that is bad. It doesn't always feel that way, but it does. And how Christians maintain joy in a world that is literally on fire, right? It's literally on fire. Like, there are fires throughout Ukraine. And figuratively on fire is we look for where God is blessing us and blessing people around us, and we grab onto that with everything we have. So when I work with people who are in early recovery or maybe moving towards abstinence from drug or alcohol use, one of the things I'll do is I'll work with them about gratitude, and I'll give them an assignment. And typically, depending on how bad you are in this situation will depend on what the assignment looks like. But I will say what I want you to do every day for the next month is I want you to get a piece of paper, and I want you to write 10 things down that you're grateful for, and you can't have any repeats. So 31 days, by the end of the month, you're going to have 310 things you're grateful for. Now, people who are really not in a very good place, I'll go 25 or 50. And so by the end of the month, you have like 1,500 things that you're grateful for. Now, you might think, Matt, I cannot find 1,500 things to be grateful for. Let me tell you just a few short lists real quick that I'm grateful for. I am grateful for indoor plumbing. It's really cold outside over the winter, and I don't want to pee or poop outside. I'm also thankful for being able to flush it, so it is not in my house. I'm also thankful for the sewer that is connected to the indoor plumbing, because if you don't have that, then all the sewage goes out on the street, and if you've gone to a third world country, that's super gross and high risk for infection and disease, right? I'm thankful for toilet paper. I don't have to go out to the trees and get leaves to wipe my tail end. I also don't have to use my hand. In some countries, that's what they do. Then they wash. Also super gross. I'm thankful for toilet paper. I'm thankful for the wet wipe toilet paper when, well, I'm thankful for that stuff. I'm thankful for soap that's right by the sink so I can wash my hands. I'm really glad that I don't have to go around the world with poop hands. It's really, really glad that I have that. I'm thankful. You might think like, Matt, you're being silly, but that's just, 10 things right there that it's like silly, but like I'm really grateful for those. And you know what? Most of us went to the bathroom and used the bathroom this morning and didn't think to be grateful about any of those things, right? And like you think like Matt's just being, I'm being serious. Like the world is full of things that God has given us to bless us that we just walk right by and don't even pay attention to. We don't think it's a big deal. But the world is full of ways that God has been good to us and blessed us and given us things to smile about and things that make our lives easier and things that give us joy and things that, you think about like there are colors. Could you imagine if the whole world was just black and white? That'd be super boring. There's color. You ever like walk through the world and go, man, God, I'm really thankful for color today. I'm thankful for all the colors that I get to see. I'm thankful for the tree and the sun. I'm thankful for the rock. I'm thankful for the breeze. I'm thankful for the grass. I'm thankful for the grass and trees because we have oxygen. Super excited about oxygen. Thank you, Jesus, for oxygen. It's a big deal. Really glad you came up with a plan for carbon dioxide out into something else, back into oxygen. That was awesome. Like the world that God created for you is so full of things that are a blessing to you. People that love you and care about you. God has given you a brain that you can use to solve problems and make things better. Like the world is literally full of blessings. And here's what I want to challenge you with. If you are struggling right now with gratitude, I really want to encourage you to go home and take a piece of paper and make a list. No repeats. And if you're really struggling with gratitude, if life is really hard right now, 25 or 50 things a day. And you might think that there's no way, Matt, there's no way I can do that. I promise you can, right? Because I've seen it done. I promise you can. And you might find that at the end of that month, your perspective is wildly different. Not that the other stuff is gone, but you're able to see all of the things that God has done to bless you. The world that surrounds us, that God created for us, is full of ways that He has blessed us. And we oftentimes as people are miserable because we've ignored most of them and not given our Creator praise for them. The last thing I want to throw out to you is this, is that there are times that things are blessings that do not look like blessings. Romans 8:28 says this, and we know this, that in all things God works together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So the stuff over here in the corner, that's the dumpster fire. We're supposed to thank God for that too. Because God says, if you love me and you're called according to my purpose, I'm going to find a way to make a blessing out of this. Now, it might not be a blessing for you, but it will be a blessing for somebody. See, the thing about God and dumpster fires is he doesn't just put out the fire, but he takes all that stuff that's damaged and broken and torn apart, and he finds a way to bless the world through it. I don't know what all of you, I know what some of you are going through right now. I don't know what all of you are going through right now, but I want to tell you this. Whatever it is, however bad it is, however ugly and evil it is, I want you to know, A, please don't blame God. We spend a lot of time going, why did God make this happen to me? And I don't know that God makes most of the things that are bad in this world happen to us. I think Satan is evil, and that's why they happen. The question we could ask is, why did God allow us this to happen? And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to come up with an answer for that today in the middle of the fire. 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, you'll look back at the thing that happened. You'll go, I get it, God. I get it why you allowed it to happen. Because this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Not that God lets bad things happen because he wants to use them as a blessing. God lets things happen because we live in a sinful world. And bad things happening is the outcome of a sinful world. But God allows them to happen saying, I'm going to find a way to bless you. I'm going to find a way to bless the people around you. So I don't know what you're going through right now, but I want you to trust me. Down the road, you're going to look back and you're going to see all the ways that God used this thing that is wrecking your life right now in this moment to bless the world around you. The world right now is a dumpster fire. It is a hot mess. I'm 40 years old. This has been the hardest year of my life. It has been. It's exhausting. It has been exhausting. But I have joy because God has been able to use me in the past year to put out some fires, to build his kingdom, to love other people, to make the world a better place, to advance the gospel, to make sure that people who weren't going to heaven are going to be going to heaven now. Like, there's an endless list. That part has been good. The world has been a hot mess. It's been a tough year, but I still have joy because God's still blessing. God still loves me. God still cares about me. And God is still putting great and good things in my life on a daily basis. I will share one thing that I am grateful about, and then I will be done. It is turtle season. It's turtle season. Do you all know what turtle season is? It's very simple. It's the time that the turtles come out. It's turtle season. And that means that every weekend, although it didn't happen this weekend, and I was very sad about that, it means that every weekend, probably for the next month or so, that I go trail running and I run by some kind of body of water, whether it's like a creek or whatever. You know what I'm probably going to see? A turtle. And you might think, like, that's not a big deal. But when you go trail running, do you know what you look at the whole time while you're trail running? The trail. So you don't die. This is what you do for yesterday, 14 miles. Just down at the ground going rock, root, up, down, whatever. And you know what? Every once in a while, a little turtle pops up. And you're like, it's a turtle. And you just keep going, and you get really excited when they're like the bright orange or the yellow ones, but you keep going, right? Keep your head down. Keep running. I promise you, God's going to drop turtles on the trail. He's going to lift up your spirits. Let's pray.